Most systems believe behavior is shaped by instruction, redirection, or staff presence. Behavioral architecture knows behavior is shaped by positioning, the placement, orientation, and spatial logic of architectural elements that guide movement automatically. Positioning determines how people enter, exit, circulate, pause, and settle. It is the moment the environment directs behavior without verbal intervention. Episode 26 exposes how positioning regulates movement, how mispositioning destabilizes it, and why spatial logic determines whether environments guide or confuse the nervous system. Environmental positioning is the spatial logic that determines how architectural elements influence behavior. Positioning is created through directional placement, aligned orientation, predictable circulation paths, intentional entry and exit points, decompression positioned where it can be accessed, threshold placed to regulate movement, sensory sources oriented to guide pacing. When positioning is present, movement organizes. When positioning is absent, movement destabilizes. Positioning is not arrangement. Positioning is direction. Positioning creates load, the weight the nervous system carries when spatial logic guides or confuses movement. Positioning load increases when circulation paths conflict, entry points pull attention unpredictably, decompression is placed out of reach, thresholds are misaligned, sensory sources complete directionally, architectural elements send mixed movement cues. Positioning load decreases when circulation is clear. Entry points are predictable. Decompression is accessible. Thresholds are aligned. Sensory sources guide movement. Architectural elements reinforce direction. Most systems try to regulate movement without regulating positioning. But positioning is upstream. Movement behavior is downstream. Mispositioned environments create loops, cycles where spatial logic confuses the nervous system and behavior compensates. The loop looks like this. Circulation is unclear. The nervous system scans for direction. The person hesitates or moves unpredictably. Staff interpret hesitation as behavior. Staff intervene inconsistently. Movement becomes more chaotic. The loop repeats. This is why some hallways cause agitation. This is why some rooms create wandering. This is why some thresholds trigger escalation. The loop is not behavioral. It is spatial mispositioning. Correct the positioning and you break the loop. Position can be built, not through staff training, not through behavioral instruction, through architecture. Architectural positioning is created through aligned circulation paths, predictable entry and exit points, decompression placed where movement naturally pauses, thresholds oriented to regulate transitions, sensory sources positioned to guide pacing, structural elements placed to anchor direction, spatial logic that behaves the same way every time. When positioning is architectural, the nervous system receives one message. This environment guides me. It stops hesitating. It stops wandering. It stops escalating. Positioning becomes structural, not effort-based. The nervous system organizes itself around the spatial logic of the environment. It asks, where does this space want me to go? Is circulation clear? Is decompression accessible? Is the threshold predictable? Does this room guide me or confuse me? When spatial logic is present, movement regulates. When spatial logic is absent, movement destabilizes. People are not unpredictable. Movement is. The nervous system is not misbehaving. It is adapting to spatial confusion. Once you understand environmental positioning, you stop asking, why do they wander? Why do they hesitate at this doorway? Why does movement collapse in this room? And you start asking, does this environment guide movement or force the nervous system to guess? That is positioning. That is direction. That is regulation created through spatial logic, not control. Positioning is not arrangement. Positioning is architecture. In episode 27, we move into environmental thresholding. How thresholds regulate transitions, how thresholds behavior shapes nervous system pacing, and why every environment depends on predictable entry logic. Predictability creates trust. Continuity creates connection. Anchoring creates stability. Positioning creates direction. Design is the first intervention. Behavior is the last.